All right, we are back after a quick little summer break with the Ricky Henderson of podcast, the greatest of all podcasts, the GUAP. I'm your host, Alex Espinoza, with my co-host, Hal Gordon.
Hot dog!
And for today, we have Alex Marks joining us. Thanks a lot to Alex. He's the Director of Strategy for the Nevada State Education Association, which has recently filed paperwork to become a political action committee, a PAC, opposed to the new A's ballpark in Nevada, calling it schools over stadiums. Alex, there's a lot going on today. We were just talking offline how there was an article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal today kind of downplaying what you guys are doing. So we kind of want to jump into it. First of all, can you just kind of give people an overview of what your goal is here and, just kind of the genesis of this pack that you guys have created here?
Yeah, so we keep saying that this whole thing involves the A's, but we're all about the whys. Why do the Nevada people have to fund a billionaire's stadium? This is about our kids. That's obviously our main priority. But we launched Schools Over Stadiums in response to the giveaway to John Fisher. So the Nevada legislature felt that their main priority for 8 days after post regular session was to spend 8 days bending over backwards to give John Fisher $380 million of public monies, while Nevada's schools rank 48th in the nation with the largest class sizes in the entire country. We had 120 days of legislative session. The stadium was always kind of lingering around there. But on I think it was the 113th day, we actually saw language for the first time. And after that, that was all everybody's focus. That was it. So after that, once again, our educators came up short. We came up short because their focus was on a billionaire. So there was a lot of good legislation during the regular session that either failed to get a hearing or died or vetoed afterwards. If watching all those bills die and then watching our legislators give a stadium away doesn't show that our priorities are completely misguided, I don't know what would. We had bills to pay for summer school. We had bills that would have created universal school lunches for our kids. We had, proposals for reducing class size, all died, didn't get a hearing or were vetoed. And then the legislature went ahead and gave $380 million in public funds to build a stadium. Apparently that's the fix. That's what they think is going to solve all of our economic woes. We have 40 years of data to suggest otherwise, but the goal for us, and maybe to bring it back a little bit, we keep asking, well, why are the teachers involved? Why is it you guys? Why isn't somebody else? It has to be the teachers, because for, decades, we have been chronically underfunded. It's kind of funny that Schools Over Stadiums ends up being called SOS, because we've been saying we've been issuing an SOS for decades about how poorly funded our schools are, how large our class sizes are, and our educators are fed up. And I think, that's one of the reasons that it is us, is because it has to be us, because nobody's going to advocate for the kids like we are. And, a stadium isn't going to fix our problems. So we set up a PAC a couple weeks ago. We are committed to pursuing every single possible avenue to stop the use of public funds to subsidize a billionaire stadium. That includes litigation to, sue. We can get into the merits of that in a little bit. And then the other option is a statewide vote on the stadium. So that could be one of two things, or both, hopefully. That would be either a referendum, which would basically repeal Senate Bill 1 from the special session. That would wipe off everything they did for 8 days. The second part of that would be an initiative process to bring in additional funding for education. So that could be anything from, getting rid of the exemption for all the live entertainment tax, which could bring in a few $1 million a year. It could be a gaming tax increase. Anything that lets the people say, we are tired of our legislators underfunding our public schools. And as the people of Nevada, we are going to take, the bull by the horn. We're going to do it ourselves. We're, maybe an Avengers reference, Thanos, like we're going to do it ourselves. We're putting on that gauntlet and we're going to do it ourselves because the legislators aren't doing it. So again, all options are on the table. We are having meetings with vendors about signature gathering. We're meeting with folks about coalition partners. There's a lot of good paths we can take. But all of them are done to make sure that our kids are the focus and to make clear to all Nevadans that public funds should not go to a California billionaire. We want $380 million going to our schools, not for a stadium.
Yeah, so sense. I'm sure, Alex, that you've heard from skeptics and opponents, well, this isn't going to get teachers any more money. This is separate, streams of money. Oh, the money that they are going to give John Fisher is just money that's sort of a but for tax money. So I can tell you, I introduced myself before the podcast as a hot dog vendor. I also just graduated from my PhD program at UC Berkeley in agriculture and resource economics, and I can tell you that basically the entire academic economics field that has ever studied these stadiums is, even though they do sort of appear in almost all cases, they like sort of appear like, oh, this is but for money, like this would be tax money that economists like estimate that the state and the county just like wouldn't get anymore. So it does make sense. I think, I mean, obviously spending money on education like that will grow your economy. But I don't think that giving John Fisher a bunch of money for something that he's got to build anyway. He's got to build a stadium. The A's can't play in the Coliseum after 2024. He has to build it somewhere. That's not going to build. He's going to spend. He would spend the money anyway. So it's crazy.
But I think that was part of the issue too. So I mean, we have taken positions against similar items at the legislature for years at NSEA.
Yeah.
And our members are very, very engaged in the legislative process, whether that's, just licensing stuff at the legislature or, things like the stadium, where it is about keeping our public funds in public schools sort of thing. And I think that was one of the frustrations, was exactly what you hit the head on, was our educators were pointing out that exact same thing. So we have a fantastic member up north in Reno, Assembly Member Selena LaRue Hatch, who's fantastic, wrote a very good op-ed that appeared in the Nevada Independent that basically said 40 years of data, folks, nothing there. All these folks see is Nevada as an easy mark, and they've said yes to every other billionaire that's come before them. So why would Nevada do anything differently this time? And they proved her right, unfortunately. But I think she has a great loud voice for the frustration that most educators face, and that's why she ran for office. She was one of these folks who saw certain things happening at the legislature and said, I'm going to fix it. And she ran and she beat the Democratic establishment twice in the primary and then in the general when they stayed out of it. But she went up there and she made a point like, I am a teacher in Washoe County right now. And let me tell you how this works. Let me tell you how this is going. And unfortunately, she was ignored for a lot of things. She had a bill that would have reduced class sizes. So that was one of our big pushes with it would have basically tied class size to teacher pay. So if it were above the ratio, you would have gotten a certain percentage based on whatever the bargaining would have been. And the legislature said that was too expensive. And that was only $250 million. So if $250 million is too expensive to reduce our class sizes, I can't imagine why $380 million seemed affordable to give to the A's owner. We pushed for a 20% salary increase for educators statewide. So the legislature would have basically just raised all the salary schedules themselves. Again, they said $300 million was too expensive. They couldn't move that. They ended up moving $300 million into the rainy day fund, saying that was too expensive. And then a week later, give John Fisher $380 million. So they can pretend that this is this economic boon. I mean, we have a great example of what it doesn't look like, right? We have the Allegiant Stadium they did with publicly financed monies, which was just as egregious because they raised the room tax to afford $750 million to finance that stadium. That's money that could have definitely gone to education. So the new one, if they want to obscure the bonds and this and that, and that one definitely did. I
remember fighting on Twitter with somebody in Nevada who was like, well, for Allegiant Stadium, it's Nevadans don't have to pay this tax because it's a room tax, and everyone's going to come to, no one cares about the room tax. Everyone comes to Nevada anyway, so it won't affect how, first of all, like, it won't affect any, won't have any effect on the demand for rooms. So like, as an economist, I'm like, wow, you've discovered something we've never discovered before.
Right, exactly.
A tax with no incidents. But like, also, if you have discovered such a tax with no incidents, then you should pass it and use the money for something better.
Right. So it's actually funny. So I was actually running for state senate that year in 2016 when they were hearing the stadium, and that was like the big proposal. So obviously I read up on it because it was a possibility that if I had won, that would have been my first vote, because they would have done a special session right after the election. They ended up doing it before, but like I was the one guy in, I think, the caucus that was like, this is kind of a bad deal, right? Like this doesn't make any sense. So, like, we can find $750 million for a stadium, but not education. And I think at that point we were 46th or 47th. Now we're 48th. So congratulations, I guess. You know, the stadium put us in 48th in education, even though that was supposed to be the big revenue boon that would help us. So, you know, we have a good example of what a publicly financed stadium does. We've heard somebody say that, you know, the stadium helped them put $2 billion into education. That's simply false. Had that been true, I think you'd hear everybody arguing for 10 stadiums, because that would be a lot of money going to schools, but nobody's arguing for that because that doesn't.
It's $2 billion.
There's no
like
evidence.
You could buy the A's for that, dude. You could buy a whole expansion team for that.
There's like 8 games a year. Like,
yeah, and then like,
how is that even that possible?
Maybe if there's 81 Taylor Swift concerts.
Yeah. Every single NFL game obviously generates $250 million.
Yeah, and it's far too soon, I think, to even say, you know, the Allegiant Stadium acts as what, maybe 4% of the entire state's general fund. That would be absurd. So it, you know, we have a great example of publicly financed stadiums right here. Notwithstanding the 40 years of data that suggests otherwise. You know, Steve Hill this afternoon said that, you know, this is going to triple revenue in the area. And it's like, where are you getting the numbers? Like, there were legislators saying, I don't see it. Please explain it to me. I'm not being flip. I just want to know how you arrive at those numbers. And again, I think this goes back to the, like, who is paying those folks to present. They sure presented a very rosy picture of everything, but with very little data.
We're gonna triple our income by putting 3 tourists in each hotel room. Like, what? How are you gonna triple revenue?
So part of our effort, and it's not directly related to litigation, but kind of somewhat related. We're going to pursue a ethics complaint against Mr. Hill and Mr. Aguero. There were plenty of folks who said that they had met with them about the stadium. And they were never registered as lobbyists. I know that doesn't certainly stop the stadium. But again, all options for us are on the table. Like, I think the process was so secretive and it shut a lot of folks out. For, you know, the listeners, when the bill was still being heard in the Senate, the assembly started hearing the bill. They called it an informational presentation.
Yeah.
I lobbied most of my adult career. I know what a bill hearing sounds like. I know what it looks like. And an informational presentation on one single item is a bill hearing. So they were hearing Senate Bill 1 in the Assembly before there had even been a vote in the Senate. And when they took the bill hearing, or the presentation, quote unquote, they shut off the phones so that people couldn't call in to support, oppose, or testify in neutral. So you shut out a large base of educators and community members, for that matter, especially, you know, those who need ADA accommodations. And, you know, we have a lot of folks on native lands in Nevada. So basically you're telling them that their voices don't matter in this process, and we're going to hear it. So, you know, I mean, politics is optics, right? So if the optics are, this is baked, this is happening no matter what, and then you do something like that, that's going to put a bad taste in folks' mouth, because it looks like it's a done deal. And that's not the way legislation, especially of this magnitude, should look, or any legislation, but especially of this magnitude where public monies are at stake. And I think, you know, so that's one thing we're going to pursue. I don't know what'll happen. I can read the NAC codes and say he should have registered. Nobody knows who paid Jeremy or Steve Hill, and that's a problem for our community, because those ethics laws are important and they should be read liberally, and making sure that our public knows who's being paid to advocate for who and why. And I think to this day, we still don't know that.
Yeah. And as far as like the main issue, like I like back to that article so we're recording this on Tuesday, and Mick Akers of the Las Vegas Review-Journal put out an article with Steve Hill. He's the CEO of LVCVA. And I guess his money quote here, he said, this is what Steve Hill said to Mick Akers. He said, litigation would be challenging the supermajority vote of the legislature, and that's misguided. That won't go anywhere. So it seems like he doesn't believe that there's much validity in your main objective. And you were saying offline that you actually you're formulating a formal response to this article. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can we get a quick preview? Like what is like you're talking? I mean, what is your response to that? And is there a chance that what you guys are doing can still, curtail this project if you reach your objectives?
Absolutely. First off, I don't know what bench Judge Steve Hill sits on where he can opine that 2/3 has already been ruled against. I'd be interested in his legal opinion on that one. Just because the Legislative Counsel Bureau says it doesn't need 2/3 doesn't mean it has to be a 2/3 or not 2/3, whatever they decide. They ran into issues like that in I think it was the 2019 session with a modified business tax that they said didn't need 13 votes or 14 votes rather, and it didn't get it, and they passed it with a simple majority. And
yeah. So just some background. I think we have had similar fights in California. So yep. I think I know, I'm aware of this, but it's that there is a part of the Nevada state constitution that says for a new tax you need 2/3 vote of the legislation.
Correct. Okay. So that's what I think our best foot forward litigation wise is going to be on that language. There is language about, and I don't have it in front of me, but basically there's two ways to attack it, either saying that it did create a new revenue or it changed the computation of existing revenue. And I was a lawyer in another lifetime before I decided to get into politics. But the way we're kind of approaching it is to say, if you create the stadium district, which is designed to create revenue to pay back the bonds from the county, didn't you just generate new revenue? Because it's not existing revenue anymore. You've generated this new tax district. So, and there's, this is more complicated than what'll be in the complaint. So that's just a kind of simplified version of the first prong.
Certainly from what they told lawmakers, they were saying this will be all new money. So that's right. Sounds like new revenue to me.
Right. And I think that the second part of that is the current Tropicana site is a hotel, it's a casino. They got shows on the Strip. If you knock down the Tropicana, you've taken away sales tax, you've taken away property tax, you've taken away gaming, you've taken away LET for live entertainment. They have a few shows there, and any other types of revenue. Yeah. If you take all of that off the table, I don't know what the Trop does in terms of percentage overall to the general fund. Let's say it's 2%. Let's say it's 0.1%. It's changing the amount that inevitably gets to the general fund, which funds education. So you've taken that off. It's not a matter of, the Tropicana deciding we're going to knock it down and then the state loses revenue that way. The state got involved to the point where they gave them that site and their plans are to knock it down. So this is state involvement in knocking down a casino for a stadium. So I think that, in my opinion, the way I'm reading it at this point, and there's smarter lawyers who are going to write the complaint than me, who I'm not a lawyer for NSEA or anything, but if you take away that portion, didn't you change the computation of taxes and that revenue in that little area? And it's the state that did that, not, private entity that decided to buy the Trop and knock it down. So I think, in terms of pursuing litigation, I think, for anybody to say that 2/3 has been decided would be incorrect. I think presumptuous. I think, in terms of, non-flippant answers to Steve Hill, who may have been an unregistered lobbyist too, by the way. It's interesting to see those who lobbied on this bill for public money to a billionaire's stadium dismiss the efforts of educators in Nevada again. Yeah. We saw that for 8 days when educators were like begging them to, fund education, fund a 20% raise, and they all just said no and brushed them off. Educators are going to always keep the focus on our kids. That's always going to be our number one focus. It's unfortunate to see folks like Steve Hill dismiss the work we're trying to do for our kids, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. You stop the stadium, that money stays in the public funds. The transferable tax credits aren't decreased, and there's $180 million left, though, over there. The taxpayers at the local level aren't on the hook, possibly, if the bonds aren't paid. But we also want to keep the focus on what we're trying to do. The second part is the initiative process for the revenue. But, all efforts are on the table. I think, when you see Steve Hill say what he says, it's the typical response from, the men in charge of Nevada who, do all the backroom deals, who decide things before there's ever a public hearing. it'd be nice, if one of these folks, and I hate to give them talking points, but the best way to approach this would just be to say, look, we'll see what the courts say, and we'll see what the citizens of Nevada say. We disagree with their position, but for people to dismiss the possible ability for a Nevadan to vote on this in a ballot, I don't understand that. If there's enough signatures gathered, we have that referendum process, let it go to the ballot. If you think you've made a good vote and you think you have presented a good case, Nevadans will vote, yes, we want our public money to go to John Fisher. If they don't, they'll vote our way. But I think the Nevadans should get a voice in this because they were shut out of the process.
Is it true though that the vote would, because I'm reading the article now, it's like another sticking point that Hill says is like, if even if they are successful, it wouldn't be until November 2024 and they could have it all wrapped up by then. But even if, but is that what you guys are trying to do? Like, even if you guys did get it to a vote, would that kind of untie whatever they did? I guess I'm just kind of confused as to where it fits in the bureaucratic process. Like,
yeah, so I think,
say MLB says okay, can you guys do anything about it? Or
I think we can do something about it, in my opinion, until a shovel hits the ground. Because I don't think, I guess what kind of bothers me about Mr. Hill's comments too is it sounds like they're just trying to rush their own timeline just to spite us. I don't know if it came off that way to Oakland fans, but that's certainly how it came off to educators who've been texting me all night going, hey, did you see this? But the referendum, litigation would certainly slow things down because who is going to demolish the Tropicana Hotel with outstanding litigation? If they say that vote needed 2/3, that would nullify every contract they have, or they'd have contracts, but they'd have no land. They'd have no funding. Same thing with the referendum, where if you remove that language from the bill, how does the Clark County Commission even give bonds to any of the Oakland A's owners? So there's that. I think, his response was very simplistic and dismissive on that end is, if there's an outstanding referendum and initiative, certainly the initiative does take longer. Like, we're not, naive to the timetable on that. We'd have to get signatures. We'd file it, and then it would have to go to the legislature in the 2025 session, which gives me heartburn just thinking about that session because we just finished the 2023. But if the legislature punts on that, then it goes to the ballot the next cycle, which would be 2026. The referendum language could repeal Senate Bill 1. We may even do another initiative if we have the funds to dismantle parts of Senate Bill 1 and maybe not even do a referendum, just make the bill, make the effort, I guess, economically impossible. Saying something like certain bonds have to be voted on or they can't go over 100,000 from, GoEd. And there's a million different things we could probably do, but I don't understand how he thinks it's a done deal. And if he thinks it's a done deal, he should, I can't remember where I read it, but I'm pretty sure Oakland was still talking to the owners 2 days ago in the newspaper I read. Mm-hmm. I think, if Fisher, I think, and that's one of the issues I think too locally, and you guys certainly probably have more thoughts on this. Nobody even trusts these people. So to the point of I don't think
in either place. I think Steve Hill and Jeremy Aguero do because they're getting paid by him, but that's probably it,
But I think it's so interesting to me where there is a group of folks who think that he's just using Nevada to leverage Oakland or maybe Salt Lake to go, look, these guys gave me public funding, match it. I'll stay. It's easier to stay. That's how little some of these folks trust this new guy. And not only is that bad just for this deal, but that's bad for if you're trying to grow a fan base. And, you've heard a million people probably say this about the Vegas Golden Knights, but they're homegrown. Yeah. We love them here. They couldn't do anything wrong. But it's because they're homegrown, and forcing a team on us that by all intents and purposes doesn't make any financial sense. I love baseball. I, don't necessarily love publicly financed baseball, but you're forcing a team on us through a very bad and, questionable deal with a lot of weird metrics that nobody quite understands. But, all the community saw for 8 days was a failing education system. And then the legislature's going, but we're done. Let's buy a stadium. And that's indicative of our entire approach. And if you've been out in Nevada for 5-10 years, that you get it. I went through the public school system here. I think I turned out okay. My mother would probably say better than okay, but you see, I've seen it go down. Like, I've seen the class sizes go up. We've been studying this stuff for years. people don't care about a stadium. They just want to make sure their kid has a teacher in their classroom. They want to make sure the bus is on time. They want to make sure their kid's getting fed. And nothing with a stadium has anything to do about that. And I don't care how many times Steve Hill says that this is going to have some type of benefit on anything like that. It won't.
How, Alex, so how can A's fans lend their support?
So first, you guys have been fantastic on social media. We're very big on social media, Twitter, Facebook. Follow all of our accounts there. Follow our union accounts, because we are a teachers union at the end of the day. Sisters and brothers of CTA and Oakland Education Association. So we're very active on there, getting our messaging out. And I think that's why you see pieces like that with Steve Hill, because we own the narrative right now. This stadium thing it's a referendum, no pun intended, on schools or stadiums. Which do you want as Nevada citizens? And I think we've framed that really well. The litigation and the statewide vote are going to be very expensive. I hate to sound like Mr. Aguero and make a pitch, but like any amount of money that you can donate to schools over stadiums is appreciated. Like we're I don't have the exact numbers, but fundraising is good. But if we're not at, that 1 million to 1.5 million, like it's going to be even harder. We are meeting with folks and donors and all that, but any bit that folks out there can donate to help the educators in Nevada prove their point that our goals are misguided and we need to keep the priorities on our kids and, make the point that public funds should stay with public goods and services. And that's not a stadium. I don't think anybody would ever argue that. I think I joked, I can't remember where I said it, but we have a commission on school funding, and their whole job was to basically say, this is how you get to optimal funding. And they give a bunch of, strategies to get there over 10 years. And the legislature has punted now 2 sessions. So for 4 years, we've ignored this plan. And in that plan, and I've read it a couple of times, it's a quick 420-page read, but never mentions stadiums. Doesn't mention the stadium being affixed, doesn't mention anything. It's, it's property tax, it's sales tax, it's expanding certain revenue bases that we already have. That would get us to optimal funding. The gaming tax could be an initiative that we're going to pursue. That would help us get to that optimal funding amount by bringing in certain funds, perhaps changing the mining. There's a lot of options on revenue, but we can't really do a whole lot on the initiative until we can get some funding. So, whatever your listeners are able to give every little penny will help, because this is going to take a lot of effort. We know it's going to be a lot of hard work to get signatures and sue and all that stuff. That's fine. We're not afraid of that. Teachers aren't afraid of hard work, and educators know how to do a lot with a little. But in terms of getting these things on the ballot and getting the signatures verified and all that good stuff, it's going to take funds.
It's going to take quite a lot of money. I think like people don't sort of imagine how expensive that is, but you generally have to pay people to collect the signatures, and then you have to do a lot of money to verify that the signatures are correct and put it all together. And obviously attorneys aren't cheap for lawmakers for these kind of things. So really it is for A's fans, right now, I think the big thing is donating money to stadiums, to schools over stadiums, and we'll drop a link, and we'll retweet the link. But you can find them on Twitter and Facebook and everything.
Yeah, because I think again, like I said, this is a strategic partnership between Nevada and Oakland fans. Like, we'd love for you to keep the team. And part of our effort is to make sure that we're not spending public funds on a stadium, which would hopefully keep the team there. But if we can successfully block them from building it here, that defaults back to Oakland. I don't have a whole lot of insight on what the city council or any of your folks are doing up there per se, just about what I read in the news. But, I think that's kind of where we're aligned is we would love for you to keep your team and us have an expansion team. So if we can, partner up on that as much as we can, it's a principled effort, but it's also practical, where if we can prevent them from building here with public funds, again, default back to Oakland, maybe that's where you guys can figure out what your deal is and keep the team that you love. I will say that if they have to come here, I hope we love that team as much as you guys do, because it's admirable. And, we'd love for you just to keep the team, and in, a few years, let Nashville and Vegas get the expansion teams, and we can learn to love a new team like we did with the Golden Knights. But again, any effort towards us with the litigation or the referendum hopefully keeps the team in Oakland, or at least prevents them from coming here, which narrows down the list of places they can go.
And Alex, were you surprised at how the vote went down with the Senate and the other chamber, the assembly? Excuse me. I mean, it seemed like initially they were kind of playing hardball, kind of asking questions and grilling them. And then that weekend passed, that long weekend, and then they came back, and all of a sudden it was a little bit softer. What did you think about just the way it went down in the Nevada State Legislature?
Yeah, I think, personally, I think especially with special sessions, they're good in a way of it heightens the issues that you have with just government, because you get to see, everybody focused on one item. And I think we saw that, for better or worse. I guess my approach to legislation is not get me to a yes. And it seems like a lot of our folks looked at that bill and said, I know this is terrible, get me to a yes. And I think that's a terrible way of looking at public policy, because sometimes public policy is just bad. Bills die because they just don't make any sense. And I think for me, that was what this bill was, where they were looking at it. They were asking good questions, especially, unfortunately, some of the ones who kind of went back on their word, which was surprising. And, they might spend the rest of their public careers not looking at the comments section on every tweet because of it, and they should. But I think when you see them asking hard questions and then voting yes, especially when those questions weren't answered. I think, there was one legislator, and I'm not going to give him any credit by mentioning his name, had asked about, this was to Dave Cavil, about the LET, and if he would, offer to pay the LET outside of the exemption. And, he kind of got stonewalled a little bit, and he said he was disingenuous for that answer, et cetera. And then he votes yes. And nothing in the amendment changed his issues with the bill. He just got to a yes. Somebody got him to vote yes based on absolutely no changes to his primary concern on that Friday night hearing. So I think it rubs folks the wrong way when you see them go, get me to a yes, I'll vote. And, some folks are fine with public money going to these types of efforts. That's fine. I think, it's telling when some folks go, with my own money, I'd invest this. It's a risk. I would do it with my own money, but with the public's absolutely not. And there were a couple of folks who said that, and that's a good way to approach this. But when you get a bill in front of you and it just says what this bill ended up saying, if your response is get me to a yes, I think that's a very, very bad way to approach legislation when it has something to do with public money. If it's other issues, there might be a case-by-case basis, but I think we saw a lot of folks just go, I want to go home. I've been here for 120 days.
Yeah.
Days.
Saw a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, that's part of the issue too, right? Like, one of the rumors was that the governor was going to call this special session later in summer, after folks kind of had a break and a lull in their legislative. So, and I don't know if that was strategic of just, kind of the rope-a-dope, like we'll just wear them out.
Yeah. I also think the timing of the Knights being in the Stanley Cup, and maybe like legislators had some sports fever and were feeling that civic pride. Like, I don't know if that had, because I mean, they were wearing Vegas pins to the chamber and everything.
Yeah,
like,
it's
I
very
really think
that they played it well like that.
Yeah.
But I think,
Can we get the teachers into the Stanley Cup finals? How do we do that?
That's what I joked about. I think somewhere I had a tweet yesterday or something like, well, if only a billionaire wanted 20% raises and smaller class sizes, I think the legislature would bend over backwards for him. But yeah. I think, it was just a very, very odd process. There was this was actually the second special session. The first one was over a vetoed budget bill, which ended up getting like one extra Republican vote. So, saying that they were going to hear it later in session in the summer, would that have been better? I don't know. It certainly would have helped to vet the idea better, but I think, they wanted to rush the process through, and they did. But I think, when certain things so the day after they got the stadium, the governor vetoed the universal school lunch bill for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for some folks who are a little bit more politically in the know, to kind of go, wait a minute, you didn't give the governor some type of no kill list before you ever just handed him a win on a stadium.
Yeah.
How about here's 10 bills. I want your signature on them right now, or we'll run out the clock and you don't get your stadium, because there's no sweat off my back if you don't. This is a bigger win for the governor than it is for the ledge. And the legislature is probably the one that has to answer to folks like the teachers more than anybody, because it's more localized. And we know these people, we see them at Starbucks and around the community because it's a small state. to veto school lunch bill after you gate a stadium, like, my God, like, I don't know, again, optics are everything. And that's what our folks saw. And for certain Democrats not to fight for the housing bills or the school lunch bills before handing the governor public money for a stadium, not that I would have supported the bill, to do that, but certainly get something out of it. I've been around for quite a bit in Nevada. Like, I've never seen such a bad deal get passed with an even worse deal. So you passed the stadium, but they didn't get anything. They got a community benefits agreement. So you have to beg John Fisher to say, yeah, we'll take care of the community. We'll help out with some folks. Like, we'll do what you want. And they got the, paid sick leave for, certain organizations who get grants. Fine. What else did you get? Because right after that, you lost school lunches and all the housing bills died. And now we're in a housing crisis still. So now what? What did we do? Are they going to live in the stadium?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, housing crisis. That's like Bay Area too. I mean, it'd be nice to have 3 more residential units over here in Oakland at Howard Terminal.
I was going to say, that was like the big sticking deal with Oakland.
I think Fisher's, my theory is that Fisher's eyes were too big for his stomach. Like, like they initially proposed this $6 billion thing with like a park, 3,000, performing arts center and hotels and condos, and then all of a sudden they need money when they go to Vegas. Like, it doesn't make sense, man. So
yeah,
I would say that a lot of things were different in Oakland, including clearly a government that was going to like check all of its, check all of the boxes and recheck them again before they were going to enter into anything. So the real thing I think that blew it up was the A's. The A's picked a site that needs like a crap ton of infrastructure improvements. It's right next to one of the largest ports in the United States, and so there's just huge semis that run on all these streets. So all the roads have like huge potholes and stuff. So they need to like redo all these roads. And so the A's just said, well, just use your general funds, just do it. And Oakland was like, well, we're gonna get transportation grants, because that's what transportation grants are for.
Yeah.
And they got, I don't know, like maybe 80% of what they needed to. Meanwhile, I think all the economics was working against the A's to build this gigantic super duper site and stuff. And I think that they just decided that they could find some bigger suckers in Nevada. And also the fact that y'all's state only meets to pass laws like once every 2 years. It's bizarre,
but the worst way to do it. Like,
oh God,
I would be so in favor of annual sessions, but it ain't up to me. But
just make these people professionals.
Yeah, I don't understand how in 2023 you can still work like to 4 months every 2 years. It's kind of crazy.
We're gonna get all the the cattle ranchers and the gentleman planters together one time every 2 years. Like,
well, like some folks, and I think, I even heard folks say, this isn't the best way to do it. There's got to be a better way, but I'm not talking about annual. And I'm like, I think their issue, and I've heard it a million times, is that if we do annual, the lobbyists will own the building. I was like, they kind of do already. Like, are you looking at anything?
You need staff, right? Like if you spend a bunch of money on staff, then you won't need to use lobbyists to tell you what the things say. That was the other thing that drove me crazy, was that the legislatures were asking the lobbyists, what does this mean? It's like, dude, you don't get, like it was very clear to me that the city of Oakland's staff had spent much longer and was much more knowledgeable about the A's plans than anybody at the state of Nevada, which you'd think.
The treasurer had actually presented the bill during the regular session. He didn't do it for the special for some reason. Very smart, knowledgeable guy. I like working with Zach Conine. He knows his stuff. After he left, there was definitely a noticeable absence of knowledge on the issue.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they didn't have him. I don't know. Yeah. Ask him if he's ever on. But I think, you said it best. I think, when you're listening to some of the questions that the legislators are asking, Guerrero or Hill or, their lobbyists, whatever you want to say, it was noticeable that they hadn't done a whole lot of prep work for some of those questions. Cause it was basic questions like, think like the opportunity costs question was like one of the worst answers I think I heard from Aguero.
Yeah.
I think he knows better. I think he was being a little careful with his answer to the point where he was like, "Oh, just like a coupon, like the transferable tax credit's like a coupon, and the opportunity costs are so great in this little area." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe, but you're knocking down a hotel to create opportunity costs when you already have a hotel that I think does the same or could continue to do the same. But it's just, yeah, it was a very odd process. Yeah, especially our educators again watched. I mean, they're smart. They know, they're engaged. They picked up on this stuff very quick and go like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And you're going to pass this amount of money for what? And you just told me no to a raise? Like, come on, guys. Where's your priorities?
Well, whatever. I'll be out there again on the socials, banging the donation bell for students or schools over stadiums. But
we've got some folks at the stadium today in Seattle with some little cards from us. So we've been connecting with some Oakland fans to just make sure that we have a presence in the stadium.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like while we're recording this right now, like about 10 minutes ago, I don't know. So A's fans went up there with cheer cards to organize, basically sell the team chants in the 5th inning of the game, and that was Hal's idea originally in Oakland. Like this a silent protest. Basically, everybody stands up for the first at bat, doesn't say anything. When the second batter comes up, everybody starts chanting "Sell the team," and that just happened right now. Like while we've been talking about 10 minutes ago in the All-Star game in Seattle, and but they cut to a Shohei Ohtani interview in the middle of it, so you can't. They didn't show the stadium at all, but you can kind of hear the microphones in the background pick it up, and some journalists have shared videos from the stadium. So it's
apparently they disinvited.
Manfred got destroyed when the A's were making their pick a couple of days ago in the draft. Like it's becoming. I mean,
and when Houston was making their pick,
it's I mean, it's definitely like a nationwide focus on this issue, and A's fans aren't giving up yet either, which is I don't know.
Well, I think that's kind of going to be our we're definitely going to make a national pitch too to folks. So I mean, outside of this community, like, because I mean, look, I mean, we hear that they're possibly doing this to Milwaukee and other cities. Like, I think we certainly want to show that there is a pushback of these types of deals. I think I heard somebody say that MLB is not really approving anything that's not a public-private partnership. I think that's incorrect, but I can't remember if I saw that.
No, that's not. They haven't made that public,
right. But I think
I
think having the teachers lead the charge is important because it has to be us. Like, it's money that's got to go to our schools, and politicians get distracted by new shiny objects like stadiums. And I've seen it twice now in Nevada within the last 7 years. Like, we've done it twice. It's the second time we got distracted. We had another special session for the Raiders. We had a new special session for the A's. And education hasn't gotten any better. So are they just giving up on that? Or it's just like, we did a little bit more than next time. So you should be, I sound like De Niro, a little bit. But they do a little bit more than they're supposed to. And that's it. They move on. They're very proud of this $2 billion that they gave us this year for education, but with the fact that we haven't funded education and the high inflation, like, it gets eaten up. We barely moved the needle with $2 billion. It sounds like a lot, but the folks who just passed the stadium have no plans for that next $2 billion. We're focused on building world-class stadiums, but not a world-class education system, and that sucks.
I think a lot of people will keep saying well, why are the teachers getting involved? This is money. This isn't money directly from teachers, but like part of the problem of these kind of giveaways is that it only costs everybody a little bit of money, and so there's nobody who's feeling so. Although I think I still think I think $380 million divided by the number of households in Nevada is still like $300 a household, which is crazy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but like, it's just somebody's got to take the lead,
right?
And I applaud you guys.
We appreciate that. Yeah, it'll take a village, but the teachers are going to lead it, and I think this is our lesson plan. We're not trying to teach them a lesson in the aggressive way, but this is our lesson plan: public money, public schools. Let's fund that first. And then, then you can build your stadium privately. Like, we're not opposed to that, but T-Mobile was funded privately. Nobody has a problem with that. they're wildly successful, and let them continue doing that. You know, they have a great model for what a privately financed arena looks like. I don't know if you guys have seen that big giant globe sphere that we have in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that thing's nuts, dude. The thing is wild.
It's really weird.
But that was I think the final cost will be about 2.4 billion dollars to build that thing. Privately financed. You want to waste your money on a giant eyeball?
James Dolan, I think, did that.
It's gonna look great in Halloween when they spin around that pumpkin again. But you know,
even the Giants across the bridge in San Francisco, their ballpark's completely privately financed, and now they're like turning into real estate moguls. They like transform that whole area. You know?
I think that's fine. Like let the billionaires get richer, but they don't need to, you know, they don't need handouts from the politicians in Nevada. And that's our point. I think that's going to be our point continued on, because, you know, we have to make the stand here because it's the right thing to do.
And, you know, I got to tell you too, I think, you know, hopefully A's fans will come in with some more money. You know, I know this is it's just gonna be really expensive. So, you know, but I also know that, you know, if it gets to that signature collecting time, you know, I'm sure A's fans will organize, you know, a bunch of convoys up to Reno and wherever we can get to stand out in outside of Safeways and
yeah, we appreciate that. We'll need folks helping out. So if anybody wants to come to Reno, so the way the signature gathering works, basically you need, I think with the Secretary of State hasn't released the exact numbers, but it's about probably 26,000 signatures of valid voters from the previous election per congressional district. So we have 4 congressional districts, so it's not as much ground to cover as some, you know, obviously California would have far more than we do.
So about 100,000, 104,000-ish around.
Yeah, so that's basically what we need. About 100, I think it's like 105, 128,000-ish range.
Okay.
Whatever they say is what we'll get. Well, actually, we'll double that, but we'll get more than that. So, you know, folks right over to the Bay Area and Reno and the Washoe County be perfect. And in Vegas, you can pretty much knock everything. You know, I mean, there's 3 congressional districts just in that area alone. So you can kind of just, you know, North Las Vegas, you know, Summerlin, and then Henderson, and you can knock out, you know, congressional districts 1, 3, and 4 right there. So, you know, and we've done this before. You know, we did signature gathering in, I think, 2008. I wasn't here, obviously. And then in 2011, before I started as well, qualified them. One of them won, the other one didn't. But, you know, we know how to get signatures on the ballot. It's not impossible. I've heard folks say, oh, they'll never do it. They're, you know, we have done it. You know, again, if the voters decide that they want the stadium, at least they got the opportunity, and that's our point. But if they want the stadium, that's also the second point of the initiative is, look, if you want the stadium, we're also going to have a revenue piece. So you can vote, give public funds to John Fisher, but also raise revenue for education. So, you know, it could work out. You know, we would hope they vote for both, obviously, but, you know, I will do my damnedest to make sure they vote yes on, you know, repealing it and yes on revenue.
Well, you know, I think when I first heard about this, I didn't know how serious to take it. I didn't know if it was going to be a serious attempt. I know that it's such a big hill to climb, but I mean, it sounds like you guys are absolutely 100% serious. And this, I think, you know, if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, please go donate and, you know, get ready in a few months or whatever to start heading, or whenever that's going to happen in a year, to go to Nevada and collect signatures with these teachers. And this sounds like a real serious and really professional everything. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with and keep reaching out and letting us know what we can do.
Same here. Yeah, happy to come on and update you guys whenever you want.
Awesome, Alex. Thank you so much for the update, man. I know it always happens like this. We end up talking an hour, so we can keep on going. So thank you very much. And again, this is Alex Marks he's a director of strategy for the Nevada State Education Association. And yeah, make sure to follow all their progress. So yeah, what are the handles, or like what are the social media profiles they should be checking out, you think?
So it's schoolsoverstadiums.com, so website. If you go to schoolsoverstadium, if you go to that website, you'll be able to get our Twitter, which is edu over stadiums, so education over stadiums, but edu.
Okay.
because Elon doesn't like 15 plus characters, so it had to be EDU over stadiums.
You could have done school with a K. Huh?
Yeah, it's funny. We used to have a Red for Ed movement, and everybody was like, "Well, I hate red. I don't look good in red." I was like, "Well, I don't have like a blue for school." That's the only rhyme I got. I'm limited to my rhymes. So we've got EDU over stadiums at Twitter, schools over stadiums on Facebook. We're not on Threads yet because I think that's just super chaotic and I can't figure it out just yet. So.
I wonder. I use it for like a day, and I don't really use it anymore.
It's like if you organize the library by the letter B for book, because I can't find anything.
I just got on because Dave Cavill did his first.
I saw that, and everybody was just
forever.
like,
and I was like, "Oh, this is a great way for me to join Threads. I'll join Threads to drag his ass."
That's all anybody did underneath was sell the team over and over again. But so we're on just the website, Twitter, Facebook. We will be having a mailing list at some point, and some sign up forms for either volunteering or donor lists. If you know some high dollar donors who are interested in helping kids in Nevada, then we'll be rolling that kind of stuff out. But we're active. We're there every day posting stuff. If anybody's on listening right now, we have just kind of a fun thing about it's an all-star game today. Tell us about an all-star teacher that you had growing up. Like, just tell us about somebody you had growing up that changed your life. And an all-star, that's the focus is our teachers and our kids. And, we're just out there for the kids and our educators. That's all.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex.
Good chatting. Talk to you soon.